What's up guys, I'm Hendo and today I'm going to show you how to make the Infinity Gauntlet. So I'm basing this build off of the Infinity War movie. There are currently two out there that you can buy, a little toy one and a big replica one. This one's going to be sized somewhere in the middle, but it's also going to light up and you should be able to pose with it. Let's do it! Okay, so step one is you're gonna get all the Infinity Stones. You're probably gonna have to murder some people. Don't worry about it, it'll be worth it. Just kidding. Since I want this gauntlet to be bigger than my lady hands, I'm gonna stuff this glove and make a pattern off of it. Most of the patterning is guess and check. Start with the back of the hand and the palm. Remember that the fit will be much better once it's actually glued down to the glove. The finger pieces all have a T-shape with a little flap that's gonna stick down under the piece before it. This helps keep the piece in place and avoids lots of gaps. The underside of each ring should be a little bit thinner so that you can still curl your fingers. The fingertips are basically little rounded boxes. Now you can pattern the bottom of the gauntlet, which is basically a big cone. It should come just short of your inner elbow. Now you can pattern all the little details. I usually like to do the details and trim out of foam too, but I want to keep the bulk down, so I'm actually going to use puff paint this time. Some of the details are going to have to be patterned around your gems. If your glove isn't lighting up, you can use pretty much any gem that works. If your gauntlet is lighting up, you want to make sure that you use a gem that's still transparent. I couldn't find anything that quite fit what I wanted, so I decided to cast mine myself. I used a silicone mold, dye powder, and clear resin. There should be 5 small circular ones and 1 bigger oval one. I also have colored cellophane that I'm going to hot glue to the bottom of each gem and really make the color pop. It's optional, but totally worth it. Now that all the gems are done, I'm going to Sharpie where I want all the puff paint to go. I'm going to make sure I have really clear lines and then go all of it with puffy paint. The zigzag pattern was the most annoying, so I made a stencil because it was starting to hurt my brain. I actually changed the size to only have 1 copy of the stencil because my gauntlet isn't very big and I didn't want to take up too much space. I used dotted lines to keep track of where everything attaches together. I'm using a soldering iron to make all of the recessed details in the fingers and arm. Then I'm going to make ridges and trims with puffy paint. I find that it's a little bit easier to work with if you transfer the paint to an applicator bottle, but you totally don't have to do that if you don't want to. Your hand is going to hurt, but push through the pain, the universe won't decimate itself. Before assembling everything together, you're going to want to make sure that you have your circuit ready. Cut out little windows for your lights. I'm reinforcing the back with masking tape so that the holes don't rip very easily. Now I'm going to put the lights in to see how long my wires need to be. I'm using individual SMD LEDs to avoid bulkiness. Making the circuit is still basically the same as with LED bulbs, it's just a little bit more difficult to solder and harder to tell which side is positive and negative. I'm wiring all 6 lights in parallel and making sure I tape off any of the bare connections. It's also getting a resistor, a switch, and a 2-coin battery case. Now I'm going to totally seal my circuit with masking tape to make sure it doesn't move or get damaged. For now I'm leaving 1 end exposed for the battery and 1 end for the thumb light. Here's a quick picture of my circuit specifications. Now I can assemble the whole thing. Make sure you label the fingers or you'll hate yourself later. Now I have somebody to hand model for me so that I can attach everything together. I usually start with taping everything down, mark where it glues together, glue it, and then tape it again to hold everything in place. Now that I have the sizing, I'm also going to attach the thumb light. And I'm going to tape that part of the circuit down too. And I'm going to put the switch down at the base of the glove. Now I can seal everything up with Plasti-Dip. The arm is sitting on a bottle and all of the finger pieces are actually taped to a long stick. It took about 5 coats to seal everything off. I've also primed it and am adding a copper metallic base. Now it's time to paint! First, we're shading all the recessed parts with dark brown. Now all the trim gets a bright gold. You don't have to be too careful with either of these steps since it still needs a base layer. The base color is gold mixed with copper so that it's a little bit darker than the trim. I recommend the golden brand of paint because the metallics are awesome and it's very opaque. However, it's pretty expensive, but any kind of acrylic paint will work, you're just gonna need more layers. I'm adding a few spots of copper to give it a slightly rusty look. Now I'm gonna shade everything with dark brown and black. I'm basically dry brushing under all the parts with trim and details. Once all the shading and weathering is done, I'm going to go back and clean up the bright gold trim just to bring back some of that definition. The last thing I'm going to add is white highlights to some of the edges of the details. Make sure the highlights all come from the same direction. I usually add just a little bit of white to the top and left edge of all my details. This is also why I chose to use white puffy paint. If it scuffs off a little bit, it just exposes white and still looks like a highlight. The hacks. Now you're going to attach all the gems. I'm adding a little bit of silver paint around the lights to help with some reflection. And one more time I'm going to test my circuit and make sure everything still works. I'm going to score the base a little bit with a knife and then just hot glue them on. It's okay to get some hot glue on the LEDs, just make sure you don't apply it directly on the LED since the heat can mess with the circuit. And one more time, make sure that those infinity stones work. Now we're going to attach everything to the glove. First, paint the fingers gold because some of it's going to show between the finger pieces. Glue the hand to the glove and then attach the fingers. For the finger rings, only glue to the underside, the sides, and the flap. You don't want to glue the top of the ring piece because the flap for the next piece has to go under it. It also helps to scuff up the paint on the glove a little bit so that it really gives the glue something to stick to. I'm using contact cement to glue it all together because that's what works best with foam, but pretty much anything will work. Oh yeah! Now you're finished. Time to rule the universe. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to follow Official Wimbush. Let me know what you want to see me make next, and until next time, thanks for crafting with me.